Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come and spend some time with you today. One of the things that I think is kind of interesting when I look at, this is the third Memorial Day ceremony I've taken part in already today, and as I've gone through all of them and looked at all the different events, and everybody does, there's a little bit different, which is great because you get to kind of see things from a lot of different angles. But one of the things that have really struck me is kind of a lack of perspective. And I don't mean that by the people that are standing here. I mean that from the people that are in part of my generation. To clear that up, I'll be 30 years old next month. I'm one of the youngest members of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. And one of the things, whenever I was running for office, and once I got into office, I realized that I wasn't really much of an expert on was issues concerning veterans and veterans affairs and military affairs in general. So it's one of the things I set out to learn about. And I requested to be on the Veterans Affairs Committee in the State House, which I serve on now, and it's been great. I've been able to go on tours and meetings and see people and kind of get a much better overview of the issues facing the veterans of yesterday and the veterans that are over fighting today. And one of the things that I find is really interesting is just a total, a lack of real understanding by my generation, and I think generations to follow me. You know, I've read in school, I've read all about World War II, and I learned about it, and, I watch documentaries, and I do these, you do these different things, but I never really had a real good feel for what it was like. And 2 years ago, I was out campaigning for office, and I was actually right up here in McDonald, up in Gladden Heights, and I was walking from door to door, and it was actually the day that my sister was in labor with my little niece, who's actually here, right over there. And I was walking, and I said, I'm only going to do a couple hours of doors tonight, and then I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to the hospital. And I was walking around, and I knocked on this guy's door. And usually when you knock on a door, you talk for 2 or 3 minutes and, kind of introduce yourself and move on to the next house. Well, the house I happened to knock on happened to be a gentleman who was a survivor of Pearl Harbor. And I was talking to him for a couple of minutes, and the next thing you know, I was sitting in his living room, and I was going through photo albums, and then his wife came out, and I was talking to her, and it's the little things that you learn. For example, the fact that from the time he was in Pearl Harbor, whenever the bombs were dropped in 1941 in December, she didn't hear from him for 4 months. She had no idea if he was alive or dead. That's how bad communications were. And thinking about that just put things in a whole different perspective for me and allowed me to really to get a much better view on it. So at the end of the day, I didn't hit as many houses as I wanted to campaigning that night. I was late getting to the hospital. So a lot of people weren't real happy with me, but I felt that it was time really well spent because it was a really great learning opportunity. And it's important to learn about the past and about the things that have already gone on, but I think it's just as important to be aware of what's going on in the future. And there were a couple things that really drove that home to me. I was at the gym, I don't know, about 3 months or so ago, and I was running on a treadmill, and I was watching on the TVs overhead. They have CNN broadcasting, and there was a special on there about a convoy that had been going through Iraq. They thought they were going to take on a special mission, and it was an ambush. They got caught in an ambush. Half of the convoy was shot down. They sustained serious injuries. And I'm watching this thing, and I have general interest in it as I'm watching it. And I look up, and they show the person who was commanding the convoy, and they're interviewing him after the fact. And it was a gentleman that sat 3 seats behind me in my high school. I had no idea he was even over there. So, seeing things like that and realizing that, in my generation, it's not just something we talk about. There are people out there that are actually over there serving, sacrificing, and doing those things. Really, it gives me a much deeper understanding and appreciation for what those men and women are going through. And I guess the best way for me to look at it is my best friend since I was a little kid was whenever we got older and we graduated from high school, it was time to basically go about our lives and decide what to do next. And I went on to college and law school and ultimately to this, and he realized, and some of us had realized it a little bit sooner, that college probably wasn't the best route for him. And the next thing you know, he came to me one day, he said, hey, I just enlisted in the Navy. And we, to be honest, didn't know how it was going to turn out. And I am proud to say that going into service was the best thing that ever could have happened to him. He got a discipline, he got a focus in his life, and he'll be the first to tell you that he didn't have before. And he's risen up through. He's currently just got made a petty officer, a chief petty officer. Was voted Sailor of the Year last year in Pensacola. And it's funny because whenever he calls me and we talk about, I can talk with him basically about everything I do during the course of my day, from morning till night. And he can't. He can't even tell me where he is. He's in intelligence. So it's frustrating sometimes because I'll say, hey, I went here, I did this, I did that. What did you do today? Can't talk about it. I'm over in the sandbox. That's all I could say. And that really to me goes to underscore the sacrifice that he's making, that he's doing things that he can't even talk about with his best friend. And it really strikes me as interesting because a lot of times I'll be out doing my job as a state rep and I'll be at a meeting or I'll be at a function or an event and someone will come up and they'll be irate and they'll give me an earful about property taxes or health insurance or any number of the things that people like to talk about, and they'll really take me up one side and down the other. And I've had someone come up to me afterwards and say, boy, you really have a tough job. And I just kind of laughed at myself because in reality, I don't have a tough job. This is easy. I'm standing here in a beautiful cemetery giving a speech. This is the easy part. To me, the people with the tough jobs are my friends and those people that have given their sacrifice, and they're over there doing things that they can't even talk about. So, I think it's important for us to do all we can do to understand what they're going through and honor their sacrifice and their service. Thank you very much for letting me be here today. Enjoy the rest of the day.